can begin.
All right, thank you, Charles. Good evening, everybody. This is the meeting of the Landmarks and Historic Districts Board for November 16th. Uh, I do not believe minutes have been circulated for our last meeting, and we will defer any approval until our December meeting, until they are distributed. We have a number of applications before us tonight, and hopefully we can get them all done fairly expeditiously. We have, I believe, at the moment, one guest, Clerk who has submitted a landmark nomination for his house at 248 New Light Lane. And if there's no objection, we could take it up first, so that would eliminate the need for sitting through the rest of our agenda by our guests. So if there's no objection, we'll go to that first. And we have had distributed the report, which was drafted by Clerk Flack. I should mention that Clerk Flack is a person who has done and prepared, I believe, 2009 or so, the Hayground Heritage Area Report. Was that your authorship, Clerk?
Yes.
So you have some pretty good qualifications for a historical presenter here tonight. So let me see if I can pull up the application here.
Hi, Kirk.
Evening.
Hey, Kirk.
Good to see you.
I love your writing style.
Okay. Let me shrink it down here. Is it all available to you?
Yes.
Yes.
Very good. Kirk's preparation of it was very impressive in terms of the amount of information and the imagery that was prepared for it. He describes, for the most part, the history of the Corwith family that was associated with the house very early on in that portion of Hayground. And he also documented the presence of succeeding owners of it. The most notable let me okay, I'm sorry for the problem there. The succeeding owners were Arthur Jones and Arthur Jones. I'm not sure who's got the feedback loop, but Arthur Jones, who owned it for a substantial period of time. And we also have the history, to some degree, of his inheritance of the house from the Feeblemans. who moved to it in 1967. The house, as you can see, is perhaps, Kirk, you could take an opportunity to describe portions of it as you described it to me back some time ago.
And it's three basic components.
Unmute yourself.
Is that coming through? My voice? Maybe not.
Well, it's very faint.
Well, in any case, there are three sections. The house faces east, and the larger portion on the left, Greek Revival, probably 1830s, 40s. The middle wing is the oldest part of the house, and that might be late 18th century. And then on the far right, sort of just beyond the locust tree that you see, is the kitchen and bathroom that was put on in 1908 by Jones. And the Greek Revival section is the most interesting architecturally. The middle section might have the most historical significance. And then the last part, the one that's on the north side, is interesting in terms of its, sort of contrasting appearance with one of the historical photographs that appears later in the report.
Let's see if I can bring those historical pictures to the fore.
It's just a few more, I think, Ed.
Okay.
There. That's what it looked like in roughly maybe 1910.
And this hardly looks like living quarters on this shed portion here.
That's right. So of course we don't know exactly what the house was like in the early 19th century, but as I said, the Greek Revival part was probably built during the Greek Revival heyday, and that was by Corwith.
Mm-hmm. This is the main door as it was.
Well, that was one of the photographs that my aunt inherited from the Jones descendant, who she bought the house from in 1967. And as it says here, about 1930, when Arthur Jones took these pictures. And the door is now, of course, a regular door, but in the house, that's inside the doorway, is an old key and lock. And the old key and lock must have been on the door preceded this one. This looks like it might have just been a temporary addition during the construction period. But anyway, there's an old lock and key, which suggests that belonged to the door that was then replaced.
No.
And this was, I guess the northwest corner of the farm as it functioned until just about 1967, when my aunt bought the domestic part of the farm, a little over an acre and a third. The 28 acres were being subdivided. And for those of you who are familiar with this part of Watermill, this would be roughly around what's now called Wild Goose Lane. And this was the farm, which continued to function really through the 1950s as a result of the Jones family leasing land to the Hand family, who lived up New Light Lane. So it continued to be a working farm until just about the early 60s.
Mhm. These buildings are not present any longer.
Yeah, those buildings are long gone. But if you just slowly go down to the next one, this garage, which was an early garage, early 20th century. Can you go back one more, Ed?
Um,
At any rate, the garage was built for cars. These are the doors, and the tops of the doors, there's a hedge which sort of obscures the lower part of the structure. But the upper part of the structure was built apparently for seasonal laborers, and it was used, I guess, in conjunction with the farming activities that went on through the leasing operation. And then when Kay Feebleman bought the property in 1967, she did some remodeling and turned it into a one bedroom apartment, which we continue to use. And there's a tenant who lives there now. And so the exterior of the garage is an authentic early 20th century garage, and then the interior has been remodeled. And this is about 1930, I guess. This porch on the left has been removed, and the door that would have led out to the porch has also been altered and is now a window in what's a library, which was probably the parlor in the early days of the house.
mhm.
And also the porch on the opposite side, the north side, is also gone. That was just on the exterior of the possibly 18th century wing. And this relates to part of the narrative. Jones was not a farmer. He was a businessman, a developer, and a builder in Brooklyn. But evidently, he had a great respect for the local culture that he was moving into, and he wanted to become acceptable to the local, predominantly farmer neighbors that he had. So he raised pigs. And this is a postcard, actually, from the Eric Woodward collection. And it's a picture of what would be the sort of eastern edge of the farm, which went almost up to where Paul's Lane branches off now. And this apparently was one of a number of postcards that Jones sent out to prospective pig buyers. And so he's advertising his brood here, if that's what you call pigs. At any rate, the name Sunnybank Farm is significant because that was what was used from about the turn of the 20th century on. Seems to me that that would be the appropriate name for the house if you see fit to recommend it for preservation, that it might be called the Sunnybank Farmhouse. In any case, the most, I guess, definitive thing to say about this is that it provided Arthur Jones with a name. He was always called Pig, as the caption on the bottom of the photo shows. And this has been confirmed by various older residents. Arnold Koslick, who was the electrician who worked on the house, always referred to him as Pig Jones. David Osborne, who farmed nearby, would talk about Pig Jones. And John Halsey, that's right, John Halsey was a neighbor who knew Pig Jones.
No. Well, here are the historic maps associated with it. I did add the missing historic maps to the ones that you provided, Kirk. 1838 Coastal Survey, which didn't label ownership, but identified structures on the landscape.
Leah, I think there's a dot in the upper right-hand corner of the lighted area.
I can't hear.
Well, I just said that I think that in the upper right-hand corner of the lighted rectangle is the dot that would be the farm.
Right, that would be a structure that where it would be located. Right.
Yes.
And this would be Caleb Howell Corwith
Right.
on the 1858 map. Subsequently, ownership went to William Haynes,
Correct.
and that was the 1873 period. 1894, Mrs. William Haynes is identified as the owner.
Right. William Haynes.
Right. And 1902, it's Miss M.P. Haynes. Might that have been a son? Mrs. M.P. Haynes, I'm sorry, that's what it is. Yes. And here in 1916 is Arthur Frederick Jones as owner. We can't really hear you, Kirk. And the 1929 atlas, it's also Arthur Jones, and the 1935 fire district map for Bridgehampton Fire Department has Jones still present as the owner. And this is the tax map that was asked for. That was not clear from the instructions as to how to get a tax map for the application, but I added this for the application. So that's it for the very extensive images and stories for the application. The interior elements are significant in terms of testifying to some degree of integrity of the structure, although they generally would not be something that would be crucial for the landmarking process. One other thing to just perhaps mention, the architectural details that you highlighted associated with the Greek Revival architecture that is present both on the outside and on the inside. Kirk, do you think this fireplace is the decorative element is original?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think it definitely was, and it's a fine piece of craftsmanship. And there is a illustration of this that appears in an Asher Benjamin 19th century builder's guide. Of course, the picture is what the craftsperson did for the mantle, and the detail that you see here.
The reason I asked, it seemed, if it was that old and had been painted a couple times, it seems extremely sharp and detailed.
It is.
No.
And
Yes.
If you back down to where that triangular divided light window is, right there, and Kirk can tell you about that. Vicky and I had a gracious tour I think it was this summer. I've lost track. It's been a while ago. And we got to see the inside of their house. And I think it was Larry Jones showed us, it was in the attic, that there was a screen up here. You have a screen in the attic that you can replace for that window. I had never seen that before.
Yeah. There are two windows in the gable, east and west. And the one that's in the picture is on the west side, opposite the main entrance.
Okay.
This is the east side.
No, that's north.
North side. Okay. Oh, that's north looking out. Okay. All right.
Toward the garage.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Also, this banister is distinctive and a piece of remarkable craftsmanship for the house. It's a narrow staircase, and then it has this wonderful banister that curls around at the top of the landing, and the illustration on the right, the photograph of the window, is the 12/8 lights that are in the master bedroom. And these, again, of course, would be mid-19th century.
Oh.
And the door in the upper left grouping is the one that was apparently about to replace that door that we saw in the historical photograph of the Jones period. And this 5-panel door is considered to be significant.
Hmm.
It's a match, actually. Can you hear me now, Ed?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, because the door that's in the wing is really the companion to the main entrance, and they have this same design, although they open differently.
So.
Yeah, hinges
Okay.
on the left.
So. I did just do some double checking on some of the things that were in your narrative, just to look at some elements. And let me see. Okay, well, certain newspaper articles have provided some extra information or background, confirmation of the details that were in the report. Certainly, the history of the Corwith family is outlined. It happens in terms of this particular obituary for Caleb Howell Corwith in Southampton. My impression is that maybe the original David Carwithy back in 1680 or 90 or so was in the town of Southold. Is that an understanding that you have, Kirk?
Yes. I think I referred to a listing of sources that I got a lot of family history from Paul Corwith, and I think that was the original member of the family to come across to Southampton town, and then his son was.
So, and additionally, I know that Marins, who owned it for a short period of time, transferred it to Arthur Jones, 28 acres in all, some of which you indicated was rented to the Hand family, also across the street on New Light Lane,
Mhm.
farmers for a long period of time. And then 67, Arthur Jones by committee, that's basically the executor, selling to Catherine Feebleman. She was married to Edward Feebleman. The Feebleman family comes out of Alabama or Louisiana.
Anna.
Louisiana, and interesting that somebody from Louisiana would get to Harvard and get there to become a head of captain of the tennis team at Harvard, which kind of led to something of a second career for him as a semi-pro tennis player.
Ed, you've got this down. Yes, he was a tennis player who became an instructor, a referee, umpire before there was professional tennis, of course. And it was largely through his tennis connections that he came to New York. He was a member of the West Side Tennis Club, and he had played at Forest Hills. He'd won a big match, a big upset in the early 1930s, and he had a good deal of credibility, and I think was respected by the tennis community. And so he then became associated with tennis tournaments at the Maidstone Club and in Southampton. And so that was his sort of path to the East End.
I noticed that while he was in New York, very often playing tennis at Forest Hills or other tournaments in Westchester and elsewhere, Long Island, he did work for a brokerage house in Manhattan in 1930, and 1940 he was employed elsewhere in the 1940 census. And Catherine Feebleman, she was an active civic party in the Bridgehampton area.
Right.
And her obituary recorded as well her career out here. So, discussion, anyone? I did send around a resolution. For the nomination, and basically talking about the report as it was constructed, that there was a check of it. I had forgotten that Susan and Vicky made a site visit, and I would include that in the reference here. I include my site visit in May 9th when you showed me the house, Clerk, as well. But I will also incorporate Vicky and Susan's name in that. And what we note is in the resolution, it has special character and historic interest for the area by virtue of its hundreds of years of connection to the agricultural economy of the town of Southampton. From the Corwith family to Arthur Jones' Sunnybank Farm. That it's identified with historic personages in the character of the Corwith generations that served as Revolutionary War Minutemen, as the millers at the Watermill Commons windmill, and also as the iconic Southampton Village pharmacist businessman that Caleb Howell Corwith was. And the third points to its architectural style of the period, and the two parts of it being early one-story farmhouse and an added 19th century two-story Greek Revival farmhouse with a front gable roof. We find that it's important because it preserves the testimony to the history and life in the town of Southampton and removes the risk of potential loss of the structures through demolition or unworthy renovations by future owners. So that is the rationale for the designation of the property as a town landmark. And I propose it be named the Corwith Jones Farmhouse. Kirk, do you have any thoughts on that?
I was thinking it might be the Sunnybank Farm.
The Sunnybank Farmhouse. Even though the Corwiths did not use that name?
Well, that's a good point. And the Jones, the Corwith Jones certainly does span the time periods of the maps that are presented in the report. So I guess that would be legitimate.
No.
Does that have to be decided on tonight?
It's just that it becomes part of the recommendation at the time of the public hearing that would eventually take place. And the public hearing is always an opportunity to argue for a different name.
Okay, I think the Corwith Jones farmhouse would be fine.
No. Okay, board members, do we have any discussion or questions?
A wonderful report, Kirk. Great house. No questions.
I think this is very well documented, and I think amply supports the landmarking recommendation.
So do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Okay, Susan moves and
I second it.
Jeff seconds. Okay, seconds. Okay. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, very good.
Well,
So-
thank you.
Kirk, the recommendation will be forwarded to the town board, and they probably would schedule a public hearing after January or so.
I'm doing the resolution right now.
Pardon?
I'm doing the reso right now. It looks like the earliest would be January 11th.
And usually they have a tremendous amount of organizational business to get done in the month of January.
Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of, but I'm going to put it in for the 11th. If they want to change it, they can do that.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Well, there you go, Kirk. Thanks thanks for coming and telling us a little bit about it in person. You're in Washington, is that where you are?
We are tonight, yes. And
Yes,
thank you all for your encouragement and your support.
Mhm. Well, thank you very much, and thanks for doing a great piece of work. It saved a lot of sweat on the part of some of us to get it put together as well. So my compliments to you.
A labor of love.
Well, very good, and thanks again, and we will move on to our next item.
Thanks, Kirk.
Thank you.
So we have as our Charles, are there any other guests?
Actually, no.
Okay, thank you.
Ed, just on that referral to the town board,
Yes.
the town clerk likes to get a copy of the actual application
Right,
and the report and the resolution of the landmarks board.
right, okay.
All right.
So we'll get the paper copy to the land management office. The town clerk can get a digital copy.
No, town clerk wants a hard copy of everything.
Okay, so that would have to be copied, or she would use the original given the land management.
That's, yeah, I would like to keep a copy of the original in land management too. So
Okay,
are there color photographs?
yes, high
Well,
resolution.
we have a color copier, so
Okay,
we can make a duplicate copy of that.
very good. Very good.
So I'm looking to put this on the town board resolution for December 14th to schedule the hearing for January 11th. So
Oh.
they would need this material. The town clerk needs the material before December 14th.
Easily done.
Okay. That's the earliest that I can get it on the town board.
Okay.
Thanks.
So let us move to 9 Schwenks Road, Watermill. And see if I can get.
I'll say a few words on it, and then Vicky made the site visit, and I'm sure she can tell you much better what she actually saw there. But for the history, the town has the AYB as 1940, and I'm thinking it's probably a little bit, probably more middle to late 1930s, but that's approximately correct. The even though I looked at the 30 map, it's possibly 38, looks like it is there, but it's in that ballpark, and it was confirmed by a one of the local farmers that one of the old timers, and he said it was a Malone family potato barn, and his recollection was around 1940 that it was built, maybe because I told him what the AYB was. But it was banked. But if you look over to the right, there may be an addition over there on the right hand, the northern side, which they say is in the poorest condition. You can sort of see a breakup there. I didn't see anything except in 1976, it was converted to a dwelling by Zena Garrett Kaufman, who seemed to be a socialite, real estate lady, artist, sculptor, and she renovated it at AH Coolidge, was a contractor. I've seen his name on a number of high-end things during that period, and or socially high-end during that period. So it may have been, they may have extended it then. I'm not sure. Vicky didn't have access to the interior, but she'll tell you a little bit more. That's where I think a lot of the damage is. But it is a familiar little site if you go down Schwenks Road on the left. It used to be part of right there, but go back up to the first page, the little house on the corner of North Sea Mecox, that was part of the original property. I guess excuse me, I show it later on. It's over to the right there. My apologies. Excuse me, it would be on the left-hand side. There's a little small house on the corner, and they were subdivided around 1975, and they own both of them. So to me, it's always was interesting because it was, a memory of it being a, agrarian, farm community. But of course, it's been altered, and nothing there much would be original door, except for some barn doors. I'll let Vicky tell you about those. But the windows and skylights and most everything was added. Interior, we didn't see, but if you look at the pictures in the application, there may be a few original things in there. The beams, the rafters painted, but a lot of that would be from the 1970s. But, history-wise, it actually started back, and I'm not going to go through that, but the Malone family owned the farm, which went far to the to the west. It was 745 North Sea Mecox Road. And that's on the last page. It's actually a historic resource. And I did an extensive history of that when they were going to tentatively subdivide that property into 2 lots. That never happened to my knowledge. But that Malone family owned that farmhouse. And it looks pretty far away, but there you go. It looks pretty far away, but that was part of their farm. In fact, you can see that farmland back up to the north of it. So it would have been a functional potato barn that they built for no other reason except for the potatoes, and it's been renovated. So, and prior to the Malones, it was the Archibald family would have had that same house. So there's an interesting history for that whole area. It was well documented in town history, but when it comes down to the particularly 9 Schwenks, it's related to the Malone family. And just given the age, it seems like Patrick's son Francis was likely the person who built it around 1940 because he was living on the farm. I think Ed had his obituary. He passed in around 1942. And the 1940 census, I believe, said he was living with his son Francis at the time. So Vicky, did you want to talk about the site visit?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I met with the architect who has proposed a rather grand renovation to the property that basically will eliminate the elevation as you now see it. You won't see anything left of the old potato barn. I was unable to see the interior of the property, unfortunately. The architect said there was no possibility of getting admittance without the owner being there, and the owner was not able to be there. However, when you walk around the property, you could see that the roof of the potato barn was actually badly deteriorated, heavily sagging. I think in one of the photos, I don't know where it is on the report here, you can actually see the deteroration.
If you go up to the top, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if you go up to the top. Also, the architect said that the structural members were grossly undersized for even the present load on the structure, so it all had to come down. The photos that you see right there, labeled November 2021, there are those 2 entry garage entrances are flanked by very, very nice looking barn doors, beautiful barn doors. I think there is another close-up of those doors.
Okay, go down a little bit farther for her pictures, a couple pages. I think it's on page 2.
Let me see if I can.
Okay, go to page 2.
If you just scroll down a bit, I think you'll see.
Okay, well,
close-up
yep,
of
let me get the,
barn doors. I asked the architect if those barn doors could be salvaged, and he said it was his intent to reuse them. Whether he's reusing them in the new construction or in another project, I don't know. But he did agree to contribute any salvageable materials from this project for reuse on other historic, there are the barn doors, yes. But he gave me the impression that there was really nothing left in the interior to salvage. I have no way of verifying that. I'm going to take his word for it. He's the architect of record. And the shot of the interior lower level north that you see, that was just taken through the glass of the garage door there. As I couldn't get to the interior, you can see that's where it's been already partially renovated, but all of that even is going to come down. There will be nothing recognizable left. And it's unfortunate, but the structure itself appears to be badly deteriorated.
If you go up to the ones right up above that, I think Vicky, they were a little bit, there they go.
Yes. There you are.
One down, top, okay, one down.
Just go down a
The
little bit.
Top of page 2, there they are.
There you go.
Can
You can
sort of
see,
it.
yes. And you can, I believe, see the irregular line of the roof there a lot. You can actually press down on the shingles. They're basically ready to come right at, come right out. You can see can you see the line, the edge of the roof there?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that is in really, really bad shape.
And it's cement blocks, so it can't be moved anywhere. And it can't be reused on the property as a pool house. It can't be moved to a neighbor's property. It's one of those. And that foundation, just looking at those close up of those blocks, the ones on the left, I don't think those could support any new construction, and that's what he says.
That's exactly right.
So your recommendation, Susan and Vicky, is, not to object. It is deteriorated, that there is no basic way to preserve anything of value for it.
Well, we thought we would suggest preserving the barn doors. They've already said they would, but would suggest it to adaptively use them. And from what Vicky said, the architect also agreed to donate if there was any salvageable materials, like to donate them, be it bathtubs or anything salvageable, to like the Habitat for Humanity. I just include that
Yes.
link in. So not that he has to do that, but if he would at least have that, if they so
Right.
Yeah, the architect did agree to that.
Yes. Well, and basically it's a matter of making people aware and possibly just including that in any kind of report, that there is a program of the town of Southampton sponsors that allows some facility to donate materials like that otherwise would be disposed of.
I mean,
Okay, so
if I could, if in a sense I could object to it, I would, but I just, when you have a 1940 potato barn, and you talk about your, farming family, that I don't think it's salvageable. Is that what you believe also, looking at the pictures? Or do you?
well, it's certainly not probably it was converted to residential use, probably not with a long-term perspective originally when it was done, and not having been maintained perhaps as well as it should have been. I don't think that there's probably much that can be said for arguing to preserve it,
Excuse me,
That
at
was
one
unless
time
unless you want to convert it back to a potato barn.
Yeah. At one time, I thought I'd seen $10,000 is the proposed renovation cost, but I never found that again. So I must have been reading something else. But they said interior renovation only. So my guess is they probably did more than that, but maybe they, like you said, did as little as possible to it. So no objection. It's
Right.
Okay, who will volunteer to do
I'll
it?
do it.
Oh, okay,
I'll do it.
Susan. I appreciate it very much. If you would wind up filing that report. Okay.
No problem.
All right. So, let me get rid of that complication. Okay. Next application is 146 Norris Lane in Bridgehampton. Let me get the Zoom screen here to share. It was forwarded to everyone. This was a very small cottage. Town records indicate that this portion here was added in 1964 or 65 period of time as an expansion of the building. And then subsequently, the cottage was added to on in the back. Let me see if I can pick that up for you. Yes, okay. So this is the cottage here. And this is rear additions that were made, and a shed or shed roof covers an open patio in the back. And this is a very small room. This is a garage and a shed. Actually, if I can, let me bring up the other pictures just to show you what's there. This is the house currently. We had a storm about a week ago, and substantial tree branches were down in front of the house. This is a garage that was there, and a shed that was open and showed a little bit of wear and tear. This is the back of the house with its patio and a little room that had been added on, probably without the benefit of building permit at the time. And this is, again, a look at the front facade of the house, showing a little bit of angling of the various members of the structure. And that's the best picture of the house that one could get. The history of the house, I provided the maps in the report. And the 1916 map shows Norris without any structures here. This is now has been built and rebuilt over the next 100 years in Bridgehampton. This lies north of Montauk Highway. Oh, I did have I forgot I put those pictures in the report. This is a 1938 aerial. This would be the approximate place of the location where the red arrow is. This basically shows a farmyard without any structure that matches the original, the one that we were looking at today at 146. And checking on the ownership is in the hands of the descendants of Willie Person, who is reported as having bought the parcel in 1947 for $1,500 on Norris Lane. So I presume that is the origins of the site and house that would be built there. The background of Willie Person is he was a born in Virginia and was part of a migratory agricultural labor system that was operating in the areas of Bridgehampton, Wainscott, Watermill, and Southampton through the 1930s and 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s. Willie Person actually came to settle, as many eventually did permanently in the area. And he became very active in his church, which is located nearby, the First Baptist Church. He presided over the building of the new Baptist church for the community in Bridgehampton. He also operated as a small businessman. His about 1982-83, his cesspool servicing operation that he had was bought, I believe, by Squires and Pearson. Excuse me. So the house is, in my estimation, is of undistinguished architecture. It is associated with someone who did have a presence in the community as in a civic role as a churchman and as a small businessman. But the house is not in very good condition, and I could see no powerful argument for its preservation. The AYB of 1890 was clearly out of whack. I think that was associated with the house next door, owned by Charles Deckard at the time. But that may be the basis for why the 1890 AYB is on the assessor's list there. So comments or questions?
This question, what year did you estimate it was built at? 1940?
I'd say it was built about 1948, 49.
Okay.
It doesn't seem likely. I mean, in theory, it could have been a small house that had been available around, but I will say that the neighborhood, which became a neighborhood of African American workers on the farms and elsewhere, there were other houses being built at the time. Some of them were houses that had been small houses that had existed earlier when Polish and Italian immigrants came into this region to first work on the farms and then to actually take on the farming in the surrounding communities. But I doubt if that was the case. As you see here, in 1916, the Kalish family had lived in this neighborhood. They were Polish immigrants, and immigrant farmers became very successful farmers, as did the Rupels, who lived next door here. So that's about the story that I have for it. Do you have any other thoughts or comments about it? If not, I would send back a a response to the building department of no objection. Okay, so that's the response that will be made. Okay. 9 East Beach Drive, North Sea. Jeff, you had some comments to make about it?
Well, the name of the street was wrong originally. It said Branch, but it was Beach on the agenda.
Yes, and that was, I believe that was then corrected.
Corrected, yeah.
Let me see if I can bring that up on the okay, this is North Sea in a very, looks like a very precarious place.
Yeah. They give the AYB as 1940. I wouldn't doubt it. It has something to do with the beginning of Southampton Shores. I think that was laid out in the late 30s.
Mhm.
I went by today, and the house is a bit of a wreck. It never had a well, it had a locust post foundation. Now it has a kind of a amalgam of materials, and they're sitting on cement that's at ground level. That is not a foundation that's 3 feet down, according to the architect's letter. It seems like they've already kind of started working on it. The back windows have all been pulled out, but none of the windows are original. They're all replacements. The only thing that I would say was original was the siding and the fireplace. The fireplace was a mess on the outside. It had several steel brackets or braces around it. And like I said, it looked okay on the inside. And the only reason I could see that was because the windows had been pulled out. And we're laying there on the deck. And they mentioned a hump in the floor, which you could see by looking in through the windows. That's the front, quote unquote. Hard to identify originally because nobody seems to put numbers out. But this on the left side, it did have a kind of fading number 9 East Beach Drive. The siding looks like it's kind of, it's a very thick clapboard, but it's so weathered that I would almost guess that the paint is holding it together. It's been painted many times. Those 3 windows that you see now on the ground floor are out laying on the deck. The rest of the window, that shed dormer on the second floor was put in 1976, according to the application. It was never winterized. And there's really not much to, I mean, you've got all that knotty pine paneling everywhere. which at least is a rich, real paneling, not cardboard, fake or whatever. But none of the windows or doors are original.
A very woody room.
Yes, ceiling, floor, and walls. I basically had no objection after I left because I couldn't see that, but it's just not, it's in terrible shape. There's already been, and like the electric meter is not complete. There was no air conditioning ever in the house, just some units thrown or put through walls. It doesn't really have much to recommend it. The fireplace looked nice on the inside. On the outside, it was a wreck. It's brick on the outside.
No.
They didn't
Well-
include. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I said you go ahead, but I was going to say it doesn't look like there is much to recommend it.
No. I mean, and if it is possible, it actually is worse in person.
No. So if any response, presumably we don't object, but
No.
any comments otherwise? If not, that's the response we can send back to
Okay.
the building department. And would you do that, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, 11 Shinnecock Road. I didn't do a report on this. Excuse me. This is a house that is proposed, as far as the exterior is concerned, to replace this existing siding with cedar shake shingle siding and with asphalt shingles to be consistent with the houses in the neighborhood. The owners apparently are interested as well in restoring the interior of the house as well, and rehabilitating kitchen and bathroom elements. The house sits in along the north side of Shinnecock Road. Let me see if I can bring the E-map up here. So this is a somewhat of a larger parcel for the other, given the consistency of the other parcels in the neighborhood. This is a church property here. I think St. Mary's Episcopal Church is here behind it. And this is a parcel owned by the diocese, I guess the Episcopal Diocese of Long Island. as well. So this property abuts it. And the only perhaps the other matter of interest, there are some period houses along Shinnecock here, including about half a mile away, the landmarked house of, I forget what the name of it is, but it's Amy Schmersel house on the corner of Shinnecock, and I forget what the intersecting road is. So they seem to be interested in preserving it, which is a good thing. The kinds of things that they want to preserve it with, if you will, on the outside does not seem to be problematic to me. I don't know if anybody else had some concerns about it. The house has some history to it because the owner, the house was built in 1898. It's got I think, AYB of 1900. It was the Edward Lewis Squires house, identified in the Hampton Bays historic profiles. And Edward Lewis Squires was the one who donated the property to build the church that is adjacent to this house. So he certainly has some civic standing. He was in 19th century, late 19th century. He was a wheelwright. He was a soldier in the Civil War. I haven't checked his Civil War records that might be available, but from newspaper accounts, did not seem to me that he had a great deal of. He was in some battle, but it was not kind of the major historic battles of the Civil War. But he lasted a long time, and he was the last surviving member of what was called the Grand Army of the Republic in Southampton Township. He died, I think it was 1934, at the age of 90. So he had a pretty good run. The year before he died, because he was so old, I think it was maybe the Southampton Press did a profile of him about how much he liked his children, how big he was into religion in his community, and it also said he didn't have a life that had a lot of scintillating elements in it. So it kind of made it sound like he was a boring person. I don't know. But that's what the article presented. Anyway, the owners are trying to restore the house, I believe, in good measure, with potentially the possibility of seeing it landmarked along the way, and perhaps possibly finding advantages in a future landmarking opportunity. So I saw nothing to object in the character of what they were doing. Perhaps the roof is, as asphalt, is not the best restoration of something. So, but I didn't find that particularly of concern. Any?
Ed, I just have one question, and it, what it had to, we're getting feedback. what it had to do with is it's not the house, but the application. There are a few things that confused me because the research wasn't maybe, the facts presented weren't always the way I remember different codes reading, but I don't think I saw any link to the Southampton town financial incentives. I don't think I saw like the tax abatement, the easement information. There was a general reference to the Landmarks Board zoning article. But then at the end, they said, well, here, if you want these incentives, and they would provide a link, but I didn't see anything from the town. So in case they missed that, maybe if you could include something like that in your response.
I would send the sheet
Whatever
that
that
we
link
have,
is.
right, of the incentives as they currently exist.
As they currently exist, if you
Right.
land, and so the
Right.
owners
No,
will.
you're correct. I did not see them mentioning that either. So, further comment? If not, I will send along a response of no objection to the proposed renovations that are there. No. Okay. 12 Quantuck Bay, Creole. And let us see if we can get that up. Okay.
Okay, so this is a construction application to add on to an existing house. The property is not in the AKRF or the Quayog Hamlet Heritage Area Report. There are 4 historic resources in the general area. This area was all one larger parcel before 1955 when it was subdivided. It was originally owned in the 1700s by John Silas Brewster. He built a homestead there in 1750, which still exists down on QI2, down towards the bottom there, but has been added on to. The property became, well, I guess it later became his son's property, and then in 1916 became the property of Theodore B. Conklin. Later on, his son, Theodore B. Conklin Jr., owned the property. It's unclear as to which one of them divided it in 1955 and created an area known as Quantuck Bay Farms. A lot of information in a publication on Quayog. So there was some information about the family and some of the buildings there. A lot of the buildings had been converted to homes. The subject property doesn't appear to be one of those. It's not shown in the 1873, 1902, or 1916 maps. The mass appraisal information has the AYB as 1935. There's a detached garage that appears to be older, so it may have been one of the original farm buildings. It's from 1920. The project is to add 3 additions onto the house. One of them is on the rear of the house. It's taking an enclosed entry porch and converting it, or actually reconstructing that area as a slightly larger portion of the living space to the house. On the east end of the house will be a 1-story screened-in porch with a flat roof, and the largest addition will be a shed dormer addition on the 2nd floor on the front of the house. I got a little confused with this house because it seems like the back of the house was the front of the house. The little porch and the entry are on the rear of the property. So in 1935, when this was built on the larger parcel of property, they must have entered it from the south, where when they subdivided it, the road was on the north, and they then sort of converted the house to have the front be the back and the back be the front. Prior to this subdivision, an addition had been done to what was then the rear of the house, which then became the front of the house during the subdivision. It's a little lacking in character. It's a one-story addition, very long, runs across the north side of the house, and becomes a one-story addition at the west end. Doesn't really have the character that the rest of the house does. So yeah, when you're looking at that picture, you could see the little porch. So here now you can see the one-story portion running across and then becoming the addition at the end. Yeah, there you can see the little porch, which is on the back of the house, which character-wise doesn't seem to make sense. And there's even a path that seems to run towards a property to the south of it. But that's the rear of the house, which I think originally was the front. It's a little peculiar because the foundation doesn't make sense. When you're looking at the roof, you can see the three dormers. The third dormer, the one closest to the right, that end of the house, that bay, so to speak, has a brick foundation with a basement, where the rest of it is all crawl space. And that part of the house is one step up inside from the other portions. So I was wondering if perhaps there was an older structure in there that later got added onto with the brick foundation in the basement and the step up of the floor framing for whatever reason. I also felt that the shed roofed addition that's being put on over the sort of what I termed a blunt addition sort of lacked a lot of character, doesn't really, again, suit the house, and was hoping that the owners and the architect would revisit that to put a little more character in it now that that's the front of the house, something more in keeping with the original house and some of the houses in the neighborhood.
Well, the name Theodore Conklin has come up before, about 3 months ago or so, in a demolition of another structure.
Correct. They had removed the siding on that house, and we could see the Conklin name stamped on the sheathing. From the shipping yard, they must have stamped it so they would know where it was going, and his name was stamped on it in quite a few places. Interesting, I did drive by there because it's only 3 or 4 houses to the east. There were a lot of people working there, which I thought was a little odd, being that they're going for a demolition application. Yeah, actually, it's one property to the east and then to the north. But I was surprised with the number of people there working on the house if they were going to take it down. So either they're trying to salvage a bunch of things from it, or they've changed their plan.
Right. This would be the house you're talking about?
No, it'd be the one to the right of it.
This one?
That one, yes. Yep. It was very odd because they were demolishing the house, but keeping the swimming pool.
Well, Conklin was a very successful businessman.
Yes.
Had a brass metal, or I believe brass factory in Brooklyn, as I recall. Was very wealthy, and several generations. And Conklin still operate here on Eastern Long Island and in Sag Harbor as a owner of the American Hotel. So, okay, so your recommendation is to give it some advice maybe about it, but no objection.
Yes, it is a modest house, and I can understand why. Looking at the photos, well, and being in the house, the second floor is built sort of into the attic, sloping roofs coming down to 3 feet or so off the floor. So I can understand why they want to do the additional space. I was just hoping that it would have a little more character. Definitely the rear of the house, the original house is very recognizable, even from the front at the moment, although that'll get buried in the shed dormer. It'd be nice if it had a little more character. It's really just one large shed dormer across there with a straight wall. It'd be nice if it had just, a little bit of character to it.
Yeah. Okay, further comments, colleagues? If not, okay, that'll do it. Another application from 44 Shore Road, Remsenburg, was determined not to have significance with respect to solar panels already installed on the building, and it was Bill and Stephanie who made that decision. So 431 McGee Street. We have been here before, right, Susan?
Yes, this is our third time around. Previously reviewed, and I had actually, the ZBA had it in 2020. It's when the first thing they went for is a variance for the accessory structure art studio that they're now proposing for us construction wise. And in May 2020, we reviewed it for a new foundation. We had no objection because sustaining, the longevity of the house. In July 2020, there was a stop work order because they were working on the main house without the benefit of permit. And we reviewed it in January 2021, and we objected to the design because it would significantly alter the structure, that it would be unrecognizable. And I included the photos from the street because it's fenced. That was taken through a fence to make sure the fence didn't show, but there's a fence around it and a gate, and there's no accessibility to the rear. But it is significantly altered. It was the Smith family house. I didn't re-include, of course, the history from the first time, but it was a local family, and there were several Smiths. They were related to the Hubbards, and it passed down through the family and sold in 2019. And it wasn't an AKRF, but it was listed in the table. And they mentioned that some of the integrity might have been compromised because that front porch had been enclosed. But now it's past that. It looks like they're preparing to stucco it. You can see on the, and I'm not sure if you can pull it up, but the photos that I actually sent, and we can go back to those, you can see they're doing the beginning of the stucco, and it's a gray cement look, but it's altered. The front dormer is now flat. The windows are all missing. But the one that Ed pulls up now, I didn't include, but I actually wanted to, because I had written Janet. Now I know I didn't hear from her. She, I think a couple weeks ago, would have requested, I requested that we could have some exterior photos since there was no access to the rear. Okay, that's the second one, but that was what it looks like in progress. But the one I took was the one that's debated. That was the one from January 2021, and that's what's in progress right now, what you see there. But the photos that I took in November are reaching that. If you go down to that lower one, go down a little bit lower where you see
Okay,
to the bottom, just scroll down a little bit on that page. Okay, that was what I took of the rear yard well, the side, and then the one on the right, the rear, when I was there. And that's where the accessory structure is going to go. And from what I'm gathering, there's going to be a connector coming out of possibly that opening and connecting to the basement of the accessory structure, because there'll be a cement block foundation and it will sit up above that. It is either 1,250 square feet or 1,265. I saw a couple different notations with the square feet. It looks like it's a side facing a gable house. I mean, gable structure. Not much detail there in the plans that were submitted, and I included that in the first document. It seemed like the contour of the land is going to change, but that's not our purview. I assume somebody else, the ZBA seems to approve the size of it, that it would be some more subordinate to the main structure. Based on the fact that the main house, which was not actually listed as a historic resource, but in the table, has been so significant. Those are the photos right now. If you look on the right, that's what I saw through the fence. And with no access to the rear, but I think that's similar. And looking at that, the one that you showed from the oblique from the overhead, is you can see there's a lot going on back there with soil being moved around. But I can find no reason to object, because the house is altered and it's really doesn't contribute to the neighborhood. But you can see back there, there's a lot going on. I think they're two 1905, at least from what I gathered looking before and looking what I see now, two 1905 structures were removed to my knowledge. I don't see them present. There's been a replacement one. You can see there down, well, actually it looks lower now. So that would be, I think, to the south. That one's a totally new building. I think at one time there was a barn garage there. And then to the rear of the property, there was supposedly a 1905 structure. But when I was there in January, it was either rebuilt or being rebuilt. So I don't think there's anything left back there. And we didn't receive demolition permits for those. I mentioned that in the last response. But I see, just looking at the accessory structure itself, since it is now altered beyond recognition, I see no reason to object. And it probably, you could possibly see it from the road now if they had maybe followed it and put it down on the lower. I don't know that would.
Yeah. It looks like an industrial area.
Pardon?
I says it looks like an industrial area.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
When I was there was a lot of, I think, different materials from other jobs may have been stored there.
Right.
But I'm not sure.
This is County Road 39, just to locate it in people's minds. This is the Mercedes dealership on County Road 39.
Exactly. And you can, if you go to that parking lot, you can't really see through because they have one of those fences where they wove the green through it. So it's pretty, and with the screening, you can't really see too much. So yes, there is. That was part of the Hubbard farm that we were looking at. And these were related to these people were related to the Hubbards. But if you go up farther, and we're not going to look, but I included those in other reports. There were a number of gambrel houses in that area, and up around the corner on Sabonic, small, possibly built by the Gray family. Some of them may have been catalog houses, and this might have been one of a number of gambrel houses in the area at one time, but it's not there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't find a reason to object unless somebody else has anything to comment. It's a new structure on the rear of a property.
So, well, okay. I don't see anything. It's been pretty mongrelized already.
I see no reason to possibly mention about I assume the building department at some time may check to see if there's new construction or that replaced former construction. I see no reason to bring it up again because I think that has passed,
Mhm.
unless you would want me to.
No, I think that's it, Susan.
I think that's it. No objections. I'll file that.
All right, very good. You must have one of the greatest collections of historical house photographs of anybody in the town of Southampton.
I don't know that, but thank you. It's started with the website, so the historic resource map.
Well, it's very impressive.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, anything to report on progress on the Nathaniel Rogers house?
Oh, I'm sorry, not now.
Okay, fine. Just that we have it on the agenda to keep track on it,
Yeah.
so it'll be hanging, I guess, on the agenda every month going forward. Referrals, the 360 Montauk Highway Eastport, that is the development and clearing that took place on the property there, which was once the site of the Tuttle Mower Shop. And is there any, David, you reported that there was some kind of litigation or taking place with respect to the activity there?
Yeah, my understanding is that they were in justice court. I don't know any details of what's transpired or what's going on. You know, it's pretty much up to the judge at this point.
Okay. 680 Scuttle Hole Road, Bridgehampton. We had nominated it for landmark status. And in conjunction with a subdivision before the planning board, we communicated to the planning board about that we would recommend it to the town board. So that is something I think that we can remove from our agenda.
Okay.
So. Pending landmark applications or possible applications, and nothing on 149 South Country Road. The Bridgehampton Historic District is in suspension until we get more progress on code clarifications down the road. The Lafayette Cottage, just to report that recommendation has been made to the town board, along with 680 Scuttle Hole Road, so that the public hearing is on December 14th. And probably we will be putting in an appearance there at the time of the public hearing. 248.
That will be by Zoom.
It will be by Zoom? Okay.
Yep.
That's helpful. So.
Yep, and both of those are also on the planning board agenda this Thursday for their report.
Okay. That's good to hear. 248 New Light Lane, we've already dealt with. The other matters on the agenda, the traditional demolition and construction list status.
In progress.
In progress, very good. applications of interest before the various boards.
Yes, I have a couple things. Planning board on October 12th, and I sent it on to Stephanie and Bill and Ed. 670 Montauk Highway, plus 107 Old Country in Quiog. There's some 17 acres there, but the one of interest is the Strebels Laundry. I think it's 1920. I'm pretty sure it's an AKRF, but I'm not sure what's happening. I think that's maybe separated out with the what they're proposing is affordable housing behind it.
Right,
So
yeah.
that's just something we may want to keep our eye on. Also on October 12th was it states at Remsenburg, the blacksmith shop was on for, I think, the same discussion of where it was going to be placed before seems to be where they were putting it, proposing again. Planning board, November 18th, I just got, and like David mentioned, the 2 landmarks are on there for the planning board input to the town. And also 225 and 251 Butter Lane. I think there used to be a house there. It was the one that was demolished, in the process of being demolished. And of course it was, and it's gone. I think there might be a partial barn left. But 2 things. One thing is the owner, Farrell Building, is proposing a 3-lot subdivision. And on that 3-lot subdivision, they seem to want to place 4 self-storage units. So I just tell you that I'm not sure if that includes removing that barn or not, but the house is of course gone.
Well, the barn is a historic structure, and certainly should be an application for demolition, but of course there was no application for demolition of the house that took place.
Do you want me to request referral of that? Or do you want to watch it yourself and wait and see, or how do you want to do that?
So if we request referral now, it's a heads up about the barn.
Yes.
And that, I think, is what we need to make people aware that we don't want a follow-up offense to take place to the first offense that took place.
I will request referral then. It's always helpful to do it prior to the meeting, which people can watch that. I assume they're on Zoom also, but we'll try to get that as quickly as we can to see what's going on. So I'll write tomorrow.
Is that the property near adjacent to the old property in Bridgehampton that the fire district bought? Is that?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is on Butter Lane on the north side of the railroad tracks. It's being used as a soil and excavation material depository by either the owner or he's leased it out for that purpose. So there are mountains of topsoil being brought in, of sand. If you're talking about site disturbance, it is the biggest disturbance going on in Bridgehampton, all under the auspices or umbrella of, it's a light industry property. That's the current status of things. A lot of people, I think, are disturbed about the extent to which the activity is taking place. Okay.
I'll request that one. I'll say ZBA for November 4th. There were no concerns or repeats, and there will be one coming up on the 18th, but that agenda wasn't posted. I didn't have it received it, and it's not posted online yet, but if I see anything, I'll let you know.
Okay. annual landmark inspections. I didn't get a chance to write my thoughts down about it, but and I will still, I think, when I get the time to do it. But some of the things that occurred to me as potential issues is the maintenance of kind of baseline or annual inspections and of how you maintain records. Do you take pictures? Who's going to be responsible for the repository of such things documenting the status of the so-called landmarks from point in time to the next point in time? With changing board memberships, how would individuals know what to look for or be familiar with some things? And, or it may take a little bit of thinking that you have to educate the kind of people who would go out and do the inspections of the landmarks that we would be looking at. So, I mean, that's just some of the thinking that you really need to think about. I think the infrastructure that goes into creating a surveillance of the landmarks. It's not just a simple drive-by or a photo shoot. Who takes care of the photos? Where are they stored? How do people get access to them the next time? They got to be compared to something else. You know, that's just some of the elements I, was a bit concerned about. It's not an easy thing. Our current inventory of landmarks is mostly publicly owned structures. And to that degree, we have kind of a self-policing system in place in terms of either the officials responsible or the nonprofits responsible. We have very few private buildings that are basically in the inventory of town landmarks. So I don't think it's a particularly great pressure to do it. And I think we need to get more thinking into how something like that would be executed. But open for discussion, yeah.
I think it may more be complicated than I thought. So, I mean, your thoughts are appreciated. I just thought of the simple thing. I didn't really look at the complexities of it. So I respect, what you're saying.
I think Ed's overcomplicating it, quite honestly. And if this is something that Department of Land Management wants to do, I think we'll go forward with it. We'll certainly take your input. But I think it is important to create a documented record of these structures that are landmarked. That's why we need good base reports when we do a landmarking. We need to know what the condition of the structures are, what the appearance is, so that on an annual basis, or maybe it's every 2 years. I mean, these details can all be worked out, but so that anybody, whether it's a new board member or an old board member, can pick up that COA report or pick up the landmarking report and go out and do an inspection. And we're not talking about a thorough inspection. It can be a drive-by. I mean, this is a very common thing that even the CPF does on their CPF properties. Every year, they just, go by and do a inspection of the property to see what the condition is and see if the terms of the COAs are being met. If you don't do an annual inspection, these things are going to get by you, and before you know it, a building will be ready to be torn down because they didn't maintain it. And just because it might be town owned, I don't think that should be a reason for not doing these inspections.
The one thing I was thinking, though, this is just about, and this isn't the time to do it, but if the building inspector, often when they get those permit applications, I see at different points, somebody goes out and they take a photo and it has that dated digital date on it versus most all of them have the 2002 but some of them may have a 2006, a 2012, if there was some type of an application. If that's something that, as they're out taking the other photos, if they could work those in and then just post them right there with the tax information. I have a tendency to go to there to look for most anything now, because I know where it's going to be.
These are all good comments, and we can certainly, come up with a process that works for everybody and puts the least amount of work on everyone. I don't even know that we need to take photographs. I think we could create some sort of a checklist, and you would go down this checklist and just check it off, and it would be recorded in the Department of Land Management. If we did want some photographs, those would be kept at Department of Land Management.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things I did mention was that the standardization or formatting of kind of reports that would be done. There are things that just were not talked about, kind of just with the off the top of the head suggestions. So I appreciate, and I certainly think that the question is, do we have a need now versus the need to have it eventually done? I think there is a need, as you say, David, to have some of that done. The portfolio will grow in size. Other questions will come about if we have historic districts. What else do you document in a historic district besides the contributing resources? You could potentially have, hundreds of structures to be involved here. So,
I don't envision doing annual inspections of all contributing structures in a historic district. In my mind, I'm just talking about landmarked structures and compliance with the COA, and that's it.
Well, are you talking about compliance with the COA, or are you talking about monitoring landmarks on an ongoing basis?
Monitoring them as well also, so that,
okay,
this would be our opportunity to discover that people are doing what they might think is maintenance and perhaps doesn't need a building permit, but is significantly altering the appearance of the historic aspects of the building. There needs to be some policing, and quite honestly, if the Landmarks Board doesn't do it, nobody's going to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to work on getting resources available to do it, both personal and organizational. So,
no doubt.
Right. Other thoughts on this, if from colleague members? So if not, we can proceed to the next item, which is there's nothing to report on a nonprofit landmarks maintenance grant business. I should probably suggest that we begin getting in motion on the application for landmark maintenance grant for this particular year as well. So that's something I guess would require drafting up an announcement, posting it, and publishing it. Is there a procedure, David, that you would suggest we adopt that's different from the one we used in the past?
Well, that email that I sent, I don't know, last week, I think we can identify certain requests that are sent to CRC that can be done without oversight by the Department of Land Management. Certainly the annual posting of the maintenance award program, I think probably can be done without oversight, but I forget what the request was that was made to. Well,
it was related to personnel for the Landmarks Board.
That's right, yeah. And that clearly has to, that's not something that the Landmarks Board can just request to be done on their own. And any sort of advertising for membership on any of the advisory boards goes through the town board liaison members, and they would take it upon themselves to post notices on the town website. That's just one of the some of the perhaps the changes to the historic district, the historic map. When we get a new historic structure, those are added to the GIS map. I think that's pretty standard, things like that. So I think we can identify certain requests that can be done without review by Department of Land Management.
No.
And we haven't reached the point where we've identified those. It would be useful to us if we knew, what are some of the standard requests that the Landmarks Board puts into GIS and to CRC, and we could come up with a list of items that don't need our review.
I would just also suggest, I think the wording of the announcement, wherever it is posted, needs to be addressed a little bit in terms of describing maybe qualifications, level of interest as well, that might be helpful to screen out the proper candidates who might be interested. So,
well, that's up to the town board members.
Right. Well, the point that I'm making, you suggested that the wording that was just presented by or drafted by Susan would be okay. I think it could be fleshed out a little bit better for whatever is going to be posted.
Yeah.
I just summarized it. I just summarized it. Contact Janet and let her deal with it. So
Yeah.
that was my. Not that we didn't. It's not posted, but I just figured that she would know which direction to point the people. But maybe we need something a little more specific than that.
No.
I've put it in the hands of our liaisons. They have it. They're aware of it, and it's their prerogative to do whatever they want with it.
Okay, so presumably it's now in process.
You would have to speak to them. They're
Okay.
They're aware that there's vacancies, and they're aware that the Landmarks Board would like to have some of those filled.
Okay.
I guess the next step might be that Tommy John or John Bouvier would speak to us and discuss further what direction they want to go in.
Okay. Okay.
On a sideline, if we get the CLG in place, there may be different qualifications for membership on the Landmarks Board. So,
and also the fact that people would have to subject themselves to some training.
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
If you have a CLG, and that's not currently a qualification.
Right.
So let's see, nothing to report on coordinating with CPF on easements. Certified local government status discussion with the town board is probably soon or not soon.
Well, I think we're done with discussions with the town board. I think we're ready to put this on for a public hearing.
I thought it was going to be run by the town board before a public hearing.
I thought we did that already. Didn't we run by the proposed local law already to them? I'll go back in my notes. I thought we had. If we haven't, then we'll do that in a work session and put it on. But I thought they had been made aware of the latest proposal.
Has the legal review been completed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, and we'll caucus about it if it needs to be clarified, and by email in the coming weeks. So.
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, any other business for our landmarks board? Well, this is very good. When we signed on tonight and Charles asked me, would we have a busy night? And I said we would be, looks like we'll be done by 9 o'clock. So are we done?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you done?
We are done. Thank you, Charles. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you.
See you later.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thank you,
Thanksgiving.
everyone. Good night.
Good
Good night.
night.